I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And we're the hosts of Geeknights. It is a podcast. If you enjoy anything that happens in the next hour with us, then I encourage you to check out Geeknights, a podcast we've been doing for a long, long time. But we're here today to talk about something very important. Because you see, you can, in fact, judge anime by its cover. People say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. But I've seen a lot of books where I can look at that cover and I know exactly what is going to be inside that book.
Yeah, it's that old saying is a warning. Because there are indeed some books, if you judge by the cover, you're going to get it wrong, right? That book is not what it appears to be.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the overwhelming majority of books, the cover tells you what's going on inside, and the same is true for anime, right? You can tell just looking at an anime what the art looks like, right? Who made it, what that anime is all about. You don't need to look any further, and we're going to teach you how to judge anime by the cover to save your ass some time.
Yep. So I gotta make something clear though. We come from an older time, a time where this was considered an acceptable quality. I literally watched anime on VHS tapes that looked like this. I think Scott and I watched the end of Trigun on some like 12p RM files. Who here even knows what RM is?
Yeah.
But
I guess you just didn't know how to adjust the tracking on your VHS player.
Yeah. But I guess back then, like back in the day, it was so hard to get anime that I was glad to watch a show like this. Ignore the picture of me taking off an inadvisable cosplay, but this is a rare photo. This is a photo of the RIT Anime Club library from when we were in university. And you might notice those boxy things there. Those are VHS tapes. I cannot express to you how amazing it was to have such a gigantic library of anime, because most people maybe had 8 or 9 tapes. Those things were like $30, $40 each.
And not only that, those things only had a couple episodes on them. They didn't have, 4, 5, 6 episodes. You were lucky if they had 2. So, you pretty much watched whatever anime you could get. That was the line. If you could get an anime, you would watch that anime. It doesn't matter what it was.
Yep, I would walk down the Blockbuster, who remembers a Blockbuster, and literally I had watched as a child every single anime in that entire store. There were like 20 of them. But
you couldn't be picky about genre. You couldn't be picky about dubs or subs. You couldn't be picky about resolution or quality or anything. It's just, is it anime? Can I get it? I will watch it.
In fact, back then, this is kind of an aside, dubs tended to cost less than subs because they knew that the people who wanted subtitled anime were willing to pay more for that. So now we live in a golden age. Like, I don't think, like, you really have to understand the fact that you can go to a website and watch all of like Fist of the North Star, 152 episodes of anime just by clicking. We didn't have clicking. YouTube didn't even exist.
And you might, the amount you have to pay is so much less, right? People used to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a single anime box set. I did that in my life, right? Hundreds of dollars for just one series, like 30-something episodes, maybe 26 episodes. Now, for way, way less than that, or possibly even 0, you can watch more anime than you can watch in your whole life.
Yep. But this introduces a problem, because in the old days, if I seize it, I watch it. That doesn't apply now. If you try to watch all the anime you can get on the internet, you'll die before you finish it. And you mustn't kill time, boy. Don't waste your life watching bad shows.
Some people watching this might take that as a challenge, but seriously, don't try to watch all the anime there is. It's not a good idea.
Now, how do you find out then? Like, how do you figure out what to watch? And for one, you can't trust your friends. Because as much as you love your friends, if you ask me, hey, what anime should you watch? I might just tell you to watch Initial D, because that's what I'm into right now. But just because I'm into it does not mean you should be into it. Initial D is not good. I love it, but it is not good.
Yeah, we can teach you, right, how to give good recommendations to your friends. If your friends actually spend the time to think about, what would that other person like? But the fact is, the majority of people, when you ask them what to watch, they tell you what they like. They're not thinking about what you would like. So, yeah, advice from friends, often not very useful in determining what you should be watching.
In fact, if you don't believe us, think about the time where you were really into some anime and your friends weren't watching it. What did you suggest they watch at every opportunity? I rest my case. more importantly, you can't really trust reviews, because if you ask old men like us talking about our VHS tapes what anime to watch, we're going to tell you to watch all this anime from the 90s. A lot of it's good. Some of it was just what we watched in the 90s because we watched literally everything. I love KO Century Beast. I don't think you need to watch KO Century Beast. But at the same time, if you ask a younger anime fan or look at a review by someone who is like 10, 20 years younger than us, you'll see a similar problem. People tend to only talk about shows that came out recently. They only tend to know about things that came out recently, and they've never heard of anything else. So you're either going to get the new hotness or the old nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people can only recommend what they know, right? So someone who knows lots and lots and lots of anime, right, has a lot of suggestions they can offer you, but they know so much that there's no way that they can target your specific interest, right? It's like going into a library. It's like, which book do I read? There's walls and walls of books. I don't know, right? I can't pick one out for you, even if I'm the best librarian in the world, right? But if you're a little kid, you've only been watching anime in the 2010s, right? You only know a little bit of anime, right? So even if, you might be able to pick one, but actually the best one for so-and-so to watch is one from an older time that you didn't know about because, right, you're too young. So who can you get reviews from? Nobody.
Yep. So we often lecture at game design conferences, and we talk about this a lot, but this is an audience where I can talk about this all over again. The way you live your life outside of anime, because as much as you might think you don't have a life outside of anime, trust me, you do. I know some people who don't, and you do not want to be those people. But we don't know everything about the universe. Like, if I take, this would work better in a live panel room. If I take this clicker and I huck it at one of you in the audience, odds are you'll catch it. You can catch an object that someone throws at you. But you can't do differential calculus in your head. You did not calculate the ballistic trajectory of some clicker hucked by some guy on a stage in a panel room in some convention center and then decide based on that where to put your hands to catch it. No, you didn't think. You just boop and caught it. That's because you can't perceive the fullness of the real world. You're using heuristics. A heuristic is a simplified rule that you can decide something easily with. So, for example, in the case of the hucked object, humans have a natural instinctual heuristic. What we do, without even thinking, is we will lock our necks looking straight at the object that was thrown at us, and then we'll move our bodies forward and backward. As long as we keep that angle of looking constant, the ball or whatever it is will fall directly into our hands. It's a simple rule. It doesn't work for everything. It happens to work for a ballistic trajectory. So a simplified rule that could be wrong will be right often enough to where you do it without even thinking.
So what we need to do is we need to develop a system where, we can't analyze every anime in the universe and mathematically calculate this is exactly the right anime that you should watch at this moment right now. Instead, we got to come up with a set of simple, quick, and easy rules so you can pick an anime to watch quickly and easily without much thought or any thought at all.
Yep, exactly. So we want to talk about some of the traps or tropes or heuristics that we use to figure out what anime are even worth giving a chance to. And that means we're going to talk a lot about guns. Now, what I mean by this is a show, I'm not recommending the show. In fact, this is not a show I'd really say anyone should watch. But I want to point something out about this show. This show has cute girls, and it has guns in it. But notice that the guns are real-world guns that are drawn with a weird degree of detail. This show...
Right, look how much effort the artist of this show put into drawing the guns, right? It's like that. It's almost like a photo of the gun there, right? Whereas the characters, the character art is, passable, normal character art, right? Whatever,
character.
Nothing, Yeah, nothing that, it's not bad, but it's not, clearly someone didn't spend 5 hours making it absolutely incredible, right? But that gun, someone clearly spent a long time, right, getting photo reference of the real gun, right, to make sure that that is exactly real world gun and no nerd could complain about it.
Yep. And the show is basically about those guns. Many of you probably played Counter-Strike at some point, or maybe I'm actually really that old and you're all playing Valorant or whatever. But people who played Counter-Strike can look at this picture and they can recognize that stare AUG right there specifically. But that this shows like this, whenever a show has a real world thing, like a real brand name of a thing, and it is prominently featured in the marketing material or the stills you see from the show is about that thing, probably to a hyper obsessive degree of detail. You've got to be on board. You've got to be into guns to care about this show, regardless of whatever else is going on. I mean, this image really says it all. They definitely spent more time drawing that Fabrique Nationale P90 than they spent drawing that girl wielding it.
Yeah, so if you don't care about guns, right, if you're not a gun nut, you're not going to like this show. It's not for you. You can tell immediately, right, just by looking at a few still promotional images, who this is for and who it is not for, and you know who you are, so you know which of those two categories you fall into.
I mean, look at this desktop background. I feel like the person is looking at one of the things in this background, and that is the object of their desire. Now, the guns can be anything. Initial D, that show about cars, look at those character designs. Look at those cars. This show, the cars are guns in this case. The show is about the cars. The characters are just a vehicle to get those cars into your face.
Now, what you can't see from still images is that this show is also about superhero beat music. It has two guns. But regardless, if you don't care about cars and or superhero beat music, Initial D is not for you.
Now, again, the desktop background is always a way to tell. I mean, that Hachiroku car is definitely showing us everything right now. I really like Initial D, and Initial D is really dumb. I cannot stress that enough.
It's a really, really bad show that we like for some reason.
Just think of it this way. The show's plot will revolve around the thing that is being hyper-focused on. Like, characters will randomly explain details about these things. Little fiddly details you might read on a Wikipedia page will matter. Like, the shows were so predictable once you realized it's a show about guns. So there's a side twist to this gun idea. Some shows are not about guns, but they're about guns. And this is sort of a trick, but it's not a trick to trick you into watching the show. It's so much more sinister. Most people are going to watch a show like this, and they're going to watch it for a particular reason. You might be able to guess what that reason is. But the show hands them plausible deniability. This is that friend you have, or maybe you've been that person, who says, no, I'm watching the show for the plot. No, it's actually about the silver trade and debased currency and politics. Yeah, we know exactly why you're watching the show. You don't need to pretend, but the show is giving you the excuse.
Yep, so there's a gun that appears at first glance to be the gun, right, which would be the silver trade. Right? But you just have to look, you're still looking at the cover, right? But you can just see the second gun, and it's like, aha, the silver trade is merely a cover for the real gun.
Now, the guns can be anything. Nodame Cantabile, the guns are music. Well, the gun is probably literally just Rachmaninoff. This show, look at the hyper detail on that euphonium and that tuba. This show is definitely about the girls, but it's primarily about these instruments. The instruments are the guns. Without ever even seeing this show, I can tell you that there will be plot elements based around specific mechanics of these instruments. Cooking shows. Another perfect example. Some of these shows are literally about the cooking. Like, you're going to watch the show, you might try to cook the thing in the show, and it'll taste like the thing in the show. Mm-hmm. These can even be terrifying. This is where the trickery comes in. This is a show I do not recommend you watch. I'm pretty sure it is on Crunchyroll.
I do not recommend any human being watch this. I don't even know why we let people know this exists. That's the problem.
But the show is literally about the history and craft of underwear. Yet the show is portrayed in a way that you can see there. So the show will say, "Oh, we are about underwear. We are the show. We're going to get into the elastic strength, the different styles of underwear through the years." But that's really just a trick.
Yeah. The show actually does do that. It tells you oh, if you're wearing these kind of pants, this kind of underwear is better. If you're wearing this kind of shirt, this kind of underwear is better. It actually explains all those things. Don't ask me how I know this. But if you want to learn about fashion, clothing, tailoring undergarments and the history thereof, this is not the way to learn about that, even though it is a way to learn about that.
Yep. If you go back to this show and try to learn about cars from this, you're going to make terrible decisions and hurt yourself. None of these shows will teach you anything because they're not really about the guns. They're not actually going to teach you anything real in most cases. Now, just because a show has hyper-focused elements or even has the word gun in the title does not mean it's about guns. Trigun is called Trigun, like 3 guns. It features a guy with a gun and another guy with a gun. And that is kind of the plot. But this is not a show about guns. That is not a real gun that someone can read a Wikipedia article about or have a weird nerd opinion about. That gun exists solely in the fiction of this show. This show is about transhumanism and space and stuff. It's not about the gun, though the gun will be a plot element. Some shows are actually about the fandom of the show itself. Normally when we're in a physical room, I would ask the audience, does anyone recognize this show? And there was always exactly one person. They're usually sitting in the back left, and they will raise their hands and or yell because they get excited. But
I think there's definitely going to be a lot of nerds watching who know what both of these shows are, right? Considering we have an entire internet audience this time.
I'll tell you what, if you recognize this show, email us. You don't win anything, just email us.
Right. But the point is, if you recognize this show and like this show, you should probably use your Google skills to figure out what the other show was, because they're almost the same show.
So the deal with this show, this is that swimming show. You might think this show, it could go 2 ways. Either it's about these hot boys who are swimming, which, based on this promotional image, yeah, that's a reasonable idea. Or you could think that this show is actually about the swimming and that swimming is the gun. In that case, how do you tell? Here's the most powerful tool we can give you. This is how you will save yourself from watching a lot of terrible shows. Do a Google image search. Type the name of the show into Google Images and see what comes up on the first page. If you type initial D... This is what you see.
You see cars. Yeah. So clearly, we looked at a promotional image from Initial D. We saw car. We thought, I bet this show's about cars. Cars are guns. Google image search. What do you know? All I see are photos of cars. This show isn't secretly about something else. The cars are not cover for the real story of the show. It really is what it appears to be, a car show.
There's even a photo of someone who clearly has a real version of that car and is posing in front of it. But if I do a Google image search for that swimming show, I mostly see the boys. In fact, wait a minute. Let's zoom and enhance on this Google image search. I think we know what this show's actually about.
Yeah, I see some swimming images, right? But not too many swimming images. It doesn't look like any of these images are like studies of swimming technique or proper form or athleticism. I don't even see someone standing on a podium holding a medal. I don't see any swimming competitions except for the butt shot there that we zoomed in on, right? Clearly, this show is not actually about the swimming. The swimming is the setting for what the show is really about.
Yep, and the ways you can tell is looking for images like that, or what do we see in the lower right there? A relationship chart? That is like the #1 indicator that this show is for the fans of the characters if you see relationship charts like this in the first page of a Google image search.
Yeah, good luck finding an Initial D relationship chart. There's not much to it. You're going to see a list of characters and what car they drive. That's what you're going to see.
Sometimes, you should learn a little bit about the anime you're watching. Some studios make a bunch of anime of very different kinds. Some studios tend to make very high-quality anime or tend to make anime that has a very particular style or a very particular target audience.
Yeah, I mean, even though these days, anime production is a very, crazy industry with companies, chipping in and doing freelance work and, all on each other's stuff, right? The creative talent at each studio tends to stay the same and not move around too much, right? And especially most of the creative decisions are made by, top-level, people, directors, character designers, writers, these sorts of people. And so that means if you see an anime from a particular studio, all the anime from that studio are going to be directed by the same set of people, right? And they're going to have similar visual styles, similar storytelling techniques, right? So, if you see an anime you like, it comes from a studio you like, just watch all the anime from that same studio. by that same director, written by the same writer, right? And you're going to be good to go. If you see a bad anime, figure out what studio that is, you're probably not going to like anything else that studio produces.
Yep. Once I saw 2 Satoshi Kon movies, and they were both fantastic, I realized I'll just watch every Satoshi Kon movie. I saw one Studio Trigger show. It was exactly what I wanted. I saw a second Studio Trigger show. It was also exactly what I wanted. I will watch any Studio Trigger show.
All right. Even if you're not the kind of anime fan who pays attention to studios, like you're not, everyone knows Studio Ghibli, right? You know Studio Ghibli. Yeah. And you can just tell immediately a Studio Ghibli movie apart from all other anime. It's just obviously how similar they all are to each other, even though some of them are better than others, based on your personal preference. You can still see this common thread of common what they share together, right? The same visual styles, the same animation styles, the same types of stories that appeal to a wide audience, the same types of music and themes, right? And you can just see how different that is from the rest of anime made by other studios.
Sometimes you want to look at the source material to see where a show came from. This is not super reliable, but it's important to know. Did a show come from like a manga or a novel? Or is it a completely original show? Is it based on a video game? Is it based on something? If you know what it's based on, you can get a sense, like you can go look at that thing, like skip through it and see if it's what you like. Or you can just start to make some inferences about what the show's probably going to be like. For example, a show that is based on a card game, this show, Dragon Collective, is based on a card game, is clearly a particular kind of show. It is a kid's show that is selling that card game. But shows that are based on, say, light novels, a lot of light novels tend to be like someone gets thrown into a fantasy world and has to navigate it. I'm not saying all light novels are like that, but a lot of light novels are like that. You can sort of start to see that shows that are based on light novels tend to all be a certain way in terms of like how fast their plots progress or how long they tend to be. It gives you one more tool in your tool chest.
Another good thing is it tends, just on average, I tend to prefer shows based on novels, like actual novels, not light novels, right? It's just, every so often I'm watching the anime and I'm like, wow, this anime is great. And it just feels, I haven't counted, but it just feels like a lot of times when I say, wow, this anime is great, is it based on something or is it original? I find out, oh, it was based on an actual like novel. And that's so frequent that now when I, check out it wondering, should I watch this new anime? Let me spend a minute to figure that out. All right, let me judge it by its cover. Oh, it's based on a novel. That's a good indicator that I'm going to like it because I liked other shows that were also based on novels.
Yep. So sometimes, anytime if you look at like these upcoming anime charts, there's a million websites that'll tell you like, here's the upcoming anime. Here's what's coming that you could watch. You can look at a show, and if it's got more than one kid, and there's also a bunch of robots and stuff in the background, like you can just tell the kids shows by looking at them. Like, look at this. Clearly a kids show aimed at kids. These 3 kids probably pilot those 3 robots in the background, fight monster of the week. You don't even need to read any of those words.
Right. You say, oh, don't judge it by its cover. Come on, look at this. There is 0% chance that this is anything but what you would say it is by looking at the cover. This is 100% kids selling toys show. No questions. You're not going to get it wrong, right? Judging by the cover works.
Especially when the gun is like in the anime, you literally see like a photorealistic drawing of the toy that they're selling. So now I gotta be clear right now. I'm not saying that JoJo's is not for you, nor am I saying that JoJo is bad.
JoJo is for everyone. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Here's what I'm saying. If there is a show that like a new season something comes out and you look and it's like season 9 of something and you've never heard of it, probably not the show for you. If 9 years of the show coming out, you probably would have at some point encountered it, tried it, started at the beginning, people would be talking about it. But if like season 4 of something comes out and you've literally never heard of the show before, odds are you can probably skip it.
I don't know. I actually disagree with that. I think if something makes it to season 4, right, And it's been going for so long. Well, there must be something here, right?
Yeah.
Why is this thing running for so long, right? It's already the 4th, 5th season. This must be a popular hit show, right? If I haven't heard of it, yeah, the newest season might not be for me. But you know what? Maybe you should at least go back to season 1 and watch episode 1, maybe 2 or 3 to find out, is this show for me, right? If something ran so long, it must have some merit, right? Just make sure you go back to the beginning.
Yep. But also, you can rely on your friends a little bit. If you have enough friends and there's a long-running show, all of you probably know someone, even if you've never seen any of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, any of this stuff, you probably know someone
Didn't you just say
really
not to
into it.
trust your friends? What happened to that?
The Harem Show. Tenchi Muyo might have been one of the first harem shows. This is a very particular kind of show. They were very, very popular in the 90s and early 2000s. They dropped off a bit. They come and go. Now they're usually cooked slightly slow. Like they're a little bit, they have a few more elements. But you can generally tell these shows because there will be one character who is being fawned after by a whole bunch of other characters. And the show is clearly about which one will they date. Like, that's the show. There might be more to it.
Yeah, it's almost always the mainest one. There's always one who's more screen time, you know, like the childhood friend, or, you know, the one that's, you know, got more screen time.
Yeah,
right? The main one. It's always going to be that one. You don't need to actually watch the show. You know which one it's going to be. It's not going to be the weird side character who's only gets a lot of focus in 1 or 2 episodes. It's not going to be that one.
Yep, if the promotional art has a lot of characters and it looks like it's going to have romantic relationships and all the characters can fit into like very clear archetypes, it is almost definitely a harem show. Now again, we're not saying these shows are bad. We're just saying if you're a harem show person, then you should be able to identify the harem shows. You can watch only those. If you're like me, you can know to avoid these shows. Though full disclosure, I loved the hell out of Tenchi Muyo when I was in high school. Most of you can figure out how old I am based on that. This is a problem that this happens in anime. We like to call it the anime tax. This is a comic that our friend Caldwell, lowell.com, made a long time ago, but it's very fitting. You can look at a show, and depending on whether or not you are already deep into anime, like how high of an anime tax you're willing to pay, you might say, oh, this show is a deconstruction of the toxic world of magical girls. Or you might just say, why are the characters dressed like that? Why is this show just gross? Kill La Kill.
I imagine most people watching this now who are so much anime fans that they're watching an online anime convention because they can't go to a real one.
Yep.
Odds are you are in the first category, right? You don't have this barrier, right, where you still see the surface level, you know, mess of anime, and you understand the language of anime. You understand what the show's trying to tell you, right? And you're not, you know, distracted or disturbed by common anime stuff, you know, like crazy things you see on the screen, right? Sweat drops, girls not wearing pants for no reason, right? That just breezes by. You don't even notice it, right? Because you understand the language of anime. That's a show for you. But if you are not such a person and somehow you've stumbled upon this video, yeah, someone might suggest to you an anime that might actually be a great anime, but you won't understand it, or it'll just bounce off of you, and you will not enjoy it because you have not already watched enough anime or gotten yourself deep enough into the language of anime and anime culture to, you know, see what the show is actually about. The surface level mess of anime is getting right in your face, and you got nothing to do with it.
Yep, and this is why you can tell. Look at some promotional images, and you can usually tell exactly how much anime tax you're going to have to pay to watch this show. If a show looks like it's crazy, crazy, crazy anime, and that's not your bag, don't even give it a chance. Just give up on it. Watch something else. Watch something that looks like what you expect. This does get into an adjacent point. Some shows are way creepier than other shows. I'm not saying you can't watch creepy shows or be creepy about the shows you like.
Maybe you like a creepy show. The whole point is everyone likes something different, but we're trying to develop a system where you can figure out, is this for me quickly without having to do too much work, right? You know, something creepy might be for you. That's all right.
Yep. Now, it would be creepy to even explain exactly what is different between these two shows, but what I will say is this. You can look at these two shows. they both have an over-sexualized and unrealistic portrayal of the female body. They both have that. That's not that uncommon in anime. However, one of them is obviously very much creepier than the other one. Without knowing anything about these shows, you can figure out that one of them is probably more of a comedy and one of them is super creepy. And you can make your decision accordingly. So I used to call this the darker than black problem, but darker than black is now old enough to where I don't know if anyone would remember it, so can't even make that joke. But basically, some shows just like dive into their nonsense, but some shows in the promotional material or the first episode of the show, they will introduce a lot of proper nouns, like way more than you expect or understand or are ready for. They'll have special terms for a whole bunch of stuff.
Right. And now usually most anime do have, most fiction, in fact, especially fantasy fiction, right? Sci-fi fiction is going to create a bunch of, new words, to describe things in that fictional universe. Even think about the word Gundam, right? That's a made up word for a fictional universe, right? But it's like, I think you can understand that the word Gundam means those robots over there, right? And you don't really need to know too many other of those words, except maybe new type, to understand what's going on in a Gundam show. And they tend to explain it to you in the show. But a lot of other anime, you read the synopsis of the anime, and they are coming at you with several proper nouns that they have made up. We got hero wings, we got pillars, right? You got Valkyries, you got all this stuff coming on here.
A god called Odin. They come right in with, it's Odin, by the way.
Right. So they're bringing in all this Norse stuff, but it's like, is this really about Norse stuff, or are they just using the Norse words? Right? This is going crazy over here. So you can tell that this is one of those shows that is creating a fictional, world, right? But tends to be doing not a great job of it.
Yeah, the more proper nouns are in the beginning of a show or in the promotional material, not the more likely it is to be bad, the more likely it is to have a lot of tell instead of show world building. It's going to tell you about the world a lot, and the show is going to revolve around pillars. What are pillars? That'll be one of the central mysteries of the show. What are pillars? Who is Odin? How do the Valkyries work? Like, that's going to be a thing.
I can already tell just from this paragraph of text and this image, right, and the title of the show, that this show is probably going to have a lot of characters, talking heads, right, explaining to each other, the something 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 pillars, the something something hero wings pillars, You'll
probably get a scene where someone's someone's going to be like, oh no, it turns out the pillars are actually some other proper noun. Like, that's often a moment in like episode 17 of a show like this.
Right. So I can tell what kind of show this is going to be and whether it's for me or not based on that.
Now, even a show that doesn't have a huge amount of this, like Gundam's a proper noun. Guess what? Not the mystery, but like the importance of Gundams, real important to Gundam shows. Like, Gundams are central to Gundam shows, as you could expect. But a lot of the other proper nouns in Gundam are sort of just background chatter, like fire the Lohengreens or whatever kind of gun in this particular kind of ship. It won't matter that much, the operational details of that particular proper noun, and that proper noun is not going to be in the promotional material. But as soon as it shows up in a summary that you find on the Anime News Network, let's say, it's going to be a plot point. If all the 10 kinds of guns in Gundam Seed were all plot points, I probably would not have cared about that show. So this happens, and I can't say what the copycats are because it'll be different in every era of anime. In the late 90s, early 2000s, it was harem shows. There were just a million harem shows. They were all awful. At one point, every show was, oh no, some boy is transported into an RPG world where he has to level up and save the day. Like, that became a thing for a while. Oh no, I'm trapped in an MMO. You'll see a whole bunch of shows that are all basically about the same thing, just crooked slightly so.
Right. One successful show comes out, and all the other anime studios, right, manga creators see a successful manga, and they say, aha, that's what's hot these days. Let's make one of those, only with different character designs, a slightly different story, maybe a different style, right? But basically, kids are into that these days. It's successful. Let's do it, right? The same thing, it goes way back. This is nothing new. Look how many super robot anime there were. And then as soon as someone came out, one person, right, they come out with some serious robot anime, suddenly tons of serious robot anime, super crazy robot anime goes away, right?
Yep.
The times have changed. So when it comes to that, you know what's hot these days, right? You'll see, right, if an anime fan who's paying attention to all the different shows coming out, aha, that's a new show. That's doing something different than the shows that came before. And then you see a bunch of other shows that look like that first one. You say, aha, that first one must have been a hit. Everyone's copying it. That means, A, watch that first one. It was a hit, right? It was a hit enough that people thought it was worth copying. And 2, if you really like that hit right home for you, that's your favorite show now, right? Watch some of the copycats, right? A lot of them are going to be copycats that you got nothing to do with, right? But if you're really into sports anime, it's like, yeah, guess what? There's plenty of good ones. It's not just, a lot of them were copying ones that came before. That doesn't mean they're bad, right? It just means there are more of the same, probably not as good as the first one. But if you're that far into it, yeah, go beyond the first one, go deeper. If you're not that much into it, just focus on the shows that other shows are copying and don't go for the copiers.
Mm-hmm. So these are heuristics, right? Like I said, heuristics are simplified rules of reality. That means even if you follow all these rules, you start to figure out exactly how you're going to decide what shows to watch, you're still going to be wrong occasionally. That's gonna happen.
We didn't say that, the old saying of don't judge a book by its cover is a wrong saying. It's a correct saying. Sometimes when you judge a book by its cover, you're going to be wrong. The point we're making is that you're going to be wrong rarely, right?
Yep.
It will happen, but it won't happen that often. And when it does happen, right, it's like, oh, I judged this show incorrectly. I was wrong about it from looking at the promotional materials, and looking at some images. I thought it was going to be different. It's actually something that not what I thought it was. I should go and watch it. Well, you know what? No harm done, right? As you're paying attention to what's going on, you're going to start hearing whispers about that show, and you're going to look and say, hey, isn't that show that I thought was bleh? And someone's going to go, no, there's something up with that one. That's a weird one. And then you're going to know, oh, snap, I better watch that right away.
Yep. I ignored Madoka Magica because I was like, okay, Magical Girl Show, whatever. I've seen a million of those. I've seen all the Sailor Moon. Not the first one, but the one that I'm into. So I'm good. And then Scott was like, no, you got to watch it. Trust me, just watch it. Just watch it. Yeah. And
I saw
many
everyone
people kept telling me to watch it.
Everyone on Twitter was going, Madoka Magica. And I'm like, I thought that was just some whatever show. I looked at it for a minute and I wrote it off and people corrected me. I didn't lose out on anything and I could admit that I was wrong. I didn't go tell people not to watch it, right? I was just using my system of figuring out what to watch, right? It told me not to watch this and then I corrected course. All is well.
Yep. Now there's usually 2 flavors of this. Usually it's either the show has a particular aesthetic, but it's actually a lot deeper, or it does things different from what that aesthetic would imply. This looks like a fairly cutesy kid show, and it is to a degree, but Princess Tutu is a legit, dark, serious, sad show that I cried at the end of. It's really good. So some shows they look like one thing, aesthetically, but what actually happens within those aesthetics could be very different. It could be dissonant, Madoka Magica, that looks like a cute magical girl show. Well, if you've seen it, you know exactly what happens in that show. But the other kind... Oh, by the way, we're not kidding. This Princess Tutu is a legit good show. Watch it. Trust me.
The show's ridiculously good.
But some shows, they do a different thing. They look like something, and they start like something. They seem to be show A, but if you watch a little bit in, they deconstruct, they flip, they turn a 90-degree angle, they do something, and before you know it, it is a very different show from what it appeared to be and what you expected. Those tend to be some of the better shows. They almost pull a bait and switch. Many of you might be too young to really remember, but when Evangelion first came out, the first time it came out, I can't believe Evangelion just keeps coming out over and over and over again. Evangelion, the first episode, actually feels like a pretty pedestrian robot anime with some weird stuff going on. And it takes it a little bit. It has like some fan service, like it's pretty straightforward, and it takes it an episode or two to get into, oh no, this is what it's really about. Some shows will pull that bait and switch, but again, the internet will correct you. So we've got about 15 minutes left, so what we'd like to do is, these are upcoming anime that I pulled from the Anime News Network. We have not seen any of these shows. A couple of them might have come out between when we were trying to put this together and when you might see this video, but we have not seen any of these shows. We literally know nothing more than what is on the screen in front of you right now, and we're going to judge these in terms of whether or not me and Scott would watch them. Like, is this a show following our rules that we would watch? All right, Mr. Love, Queen's Choice. Now, we're reading this text at the same time you are, but I already see this girl meets 4 potential boyfriends. So there's a possibility of harem show.
I also see a little pronoun down there. This could be some pronoun action in this show.
Yeah, there's a conspiracy, some bankruptcy. These boys actually look like they're dangerous. I'm actually getting... I feel like this show is going to be about the main character interacting with these boys, and one of the questions will be, which one of these 4 potential boyfriends does she date? But I'll bet it actually has like a plot that is about something that is not that, and is also not a gun. Like there's some
It's also
plot.
interesting that the description mentions a heroine, but the heroine is nowhere to be seen in the promotional image.
Yeah.
Also, I see that it's Studio Mappa has produced this, and, you know, some other people may enjoy Studio Mappa, but I know that I have not personally enjoyed many of their shows, so I think I would only watch this if it was one of those hidden wrong cases, and my social networks start whispering about this show that there's something great about it, then I'll come back and take a look, but I think I will be taking a pass based on this cover.
Yep, and based on what you said too, this reminds me of, there's another kind of show that you'll run into occasionally, the self-insertion show, where all the characters in the show are going to be super fleshed out, detailed, interesting, except the main character, who is a just complete, boring, gray blank slate, because the sole purpose of that show is for you to imagine that that is you. And because, like you pointed out, the heroine is not shown in this promotional material, I would not be surprised if this show is that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I can already see where this is going. So 1, this has a running time of 5 minutes per episode. That tends to be either gag show or moe show. And I think it's a moe show. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a show for people who want to collect figurines of these girls in their different costumes. Do the girls transform into trains, or do they conduct the trains, or something like that?
Yeah, they are. Oh, there's a proper noun. They are rail lords.
Ah, okay.
So the rail lords either run or are the trains. You know, it's anime. I can't tell. I suspect they aren't the trains themselves, because that's a whole genre in and of itself. I suspect this show is moe girls running trains.
They could be. If you look at the skirt of the girl who's most prominent in the front, it looks sort of like, you know, the engine of a locomotive.
I can see
and
that.
The one in red is clearly the caboose.
Either that or she's cosplaying as the conductor from Galaxy Express.
No, you can see her face, so that's not the correct.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I feel like, moe show, I feel like this is not for us. It might be for you, but you have to care about trains or the show is not for you. The trains are definitely guns in this show, 100%.
This is definitely for the otaku who collects figurines of, you know, cute girls and trains.
Yep. I mean, look, the specific names of trains, the Kiha 101, the D51 840. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Maho no Tabi Tabi. Oh, all right.
So goes on a journey across the world.
The art looks good. The art looks benign. I don't see a high anime tax. I'm getting a very like surreal fantasy world vibe. Probably really good backgrounds, really good like world building.
Right. A witch goes on a journey and runs into a giant in love with his own muscles. That sounds like an awesome side character. All good animes have awesome side characters like that.
Yep. It also implies that the show is funny.
Gonna be, in fact, I feel like if I watched this show, that giant in love with his own muscles would be like the cool character everyone loves.
100%. 100%.
And makes memes out of.
In fact, you know
Yeah.
you know what I'm feeling like this might be? I feel like this is going to be a little bit like Mushishi, because based on these words, it seems like it's this witch traveling the world, and every episode might just be her in a different place, having a sort of slice of life, helping people out along the way. You'll probably like go town to town or city to city. The muscle guy is probably like one of a whole array of awesome side characters. I would definitely give this show a shot. I would watch an episode.
Yeah. And in fact, if you look at the artwork, this clearly someone put a lot of effort into the backgrounds.
Oh yeah,
right?
that is a great background.
And the character also really good art there, but the background, a lot of effort went into that one. So clearly, this is a story, as the description says, about traveling and seeing this fictional world, and that sounds like the kind of show I'm into.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll take a little look-see.
Yeah, I really like Mushishi. If this is even close to evoking that feeling, but in a fantasy world like this, I am 100% down.
Mm-hmm.
X-Arm! All right. This one's diving in deep already.
It's RoboCop, the anime. I can tell already.
You know what this is? This is almost the same plot as Birdie the Mighty, but probably a lot more grimdark and serious.
I think it's closer to RoboCop. Someone gets in an accident and their brain is put into a police weapon.
This feels like some cyberpunk nonsense, but I mean nonsense in a good way.
Yeah, maybe. You can definitely see that, there aren't any guns to be seen, right?
Well, there is a gun. The one character is literally pointing a gun at us right now, but it's a lowercase g gun. It's not an uppercase G gun.
Right. The only proper noun is just the name of the division of police that they're, but yeah, I've actually watched quite a few anime. There's like Inuyashiki. That's a manga / anime, which is similar kind of plot of, someone having their body put into some sort of robot body by accident.
But also look at the art. There's nothing creepy in the art, and look at the city morphing into a person. There is definitely some sort of cyberpunk, like AI thing going on in this show. I feel like
there's definitely a terrible secret that's going to be revealed as the show goes on. Right towards the last episode, you find out, right? Really what's going on with X-Arm. It's this and that, and this guy's actually the bad guy. And that's the kind of show I'm into. So maybe I'll put X-Arm on my list.
I would watch an episode of this. Sleepy Princess in the Demon Castle. I can already tell from that art alone, this is definitely a comedy.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely it's also cute, right? You got cute and funny combo. Maybe that sounds fun.
Oh, human princess imprisoned in a demon castle, and I think she's just bored and waiting for someone to save her and can't sleep.
And the demons are not torturing her or doing anything bad to her. They're just keeping her there.
In fact, in the background, you can see some of the demons. They look like they're just fighting with each other and exasperated. This looks like a pretty good upcoming season of anime.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually seen quite a few anime and manga plots that are along the same lines of focusing on a character in, say, a typical fantasy world that is, not usually the focus, right? Or one aspect of a typical plot, and just, moving the camera. So you have like Delicious in Dungeon. It's like, okay, it's a dungeon crawler, but instead of focusing on going down the dungeon and beating the boss, they're focusing on how do you survive in the dungeon, right? It's like, oh, right, well here, it's like, okay, princess who needs saving. Instead of focusing on the hero saving the princess, they're focusing on the princess waiting to be saved. Typical plot, new focus. Oh, suddenly interesting twist, worth watching maybe.
Yeah, definitely a comedy. So... This is both a copycat and a harem show. This is like the third or fourth Monster Girl show that I've seen. This is probably just an AirSats version of whatever that first Monster Girl show was.
How do you know this isn't in the same series as that Monster Girl show? How do you know it isn't the same one?
This is definitely a different show, because I've seen promotional material for that one.
All I know is that there was an anime called Monster Girl or something like that.
It's called Monster Musume. This one is called Monster Girl Doctor, and it's a totally different set of Monster Girls.
Monster Musume Doctor?
I don't think these are the same show.
Okay, I don't know.
And they're definitely not that other creepy monster review one that we're not going to talk about. Yeah, the show is going to be, if I had to guess, one, it's a copycat. It's just another Monster Girl show. It's also a harem show. And it's also going to be creepy, but not super creepy. I don't think it's actually pornographic.
Yeah, no, it's just that tiny bit of creepiness, right? That all kind of animes have. There's definitely an anime tax involved in this show. Would be very, very high, I think, right? So, so you would, if someone watched this at their first anime, they would bounce off like, you know, a racquetball, right? But you know, if you're a seasoned anime fan, this show will probably seem perfectly, you know, normal to you and not at all messed up.
Yep, but I wonder if you're a Monster Girl kind of person, is this the one for you, or is this just a copycat and you want to watch those original ones? Like that, I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's not for me, though, so let's move on.
All right, you're either on the Sword Art train or you're not. If you don't already know about the Alicization War of the Underworld Part 2, like, this is not the show for you. You're either already planning to watch this or you're not.
Did you put those lorem ipsums there in the description?
I just put lorem ipsum text there because the preview did not have any text in the description when I put this panel together.
Because you don't need any text, right? If you're an anime fan, you either know what Sword Art Online is or you don't. If you know what it is, you know if you like it or not. And if you don't know what it is, well, guess what? It's popular enough to last this long. Go find out what it is, and if what you find out is to your liking, start at the beginning. Don't start with Alicization War of the Underworld Part 2. At the very least, start with War of the Underworld Part 1. If not, just Sword Art Online 1.
I'm still trying to figure out what Alicization is. Also, that promotional art, that is a very high anime tax. That is saying, we already know you're down for this train, and here it goes. Like, that art is saying, we don't need to even tell you what this is about. All right. So, nice background. Uzaki-chan wants to hang out. Maybe this is a slice of life. Uh-oh. No. It specifically points out how well endowed she is. That's a warning sign.
I see.
I was about to say, I'll bet this is a cute slice of life show, but now I'm a little worried about that specific point there. It's probably more of an ecchi, like, comedy of some kind, if I had to guess.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, on the one, this could be one of those situations where the gun was hiding the true intent, right? You know, you look, and your first impression is, aha, I look at this cover, and I see, you know, happy people, right, hanging out in an island or a coastal town, you know, kind of peaceful, you know, just story of, you know, chill people doing chill stuff. But the fact that in this, they only got one paragraph, and they managed to mention the fact, right, that the underclassman who is taking up most of the frame in the promotional image, right, is well endowed. Yeah, we know what the show's really going to be focusing on here. Right, and it's not going to be chill times at a cafe.
Yep. All right, the title alone makes me intrigued by this. Peter Grill and the Philosopher's Time? The strongest
title.
Man in the world? But I think this is a perverted show, based on having read a few more words while I was saying that. I guess he has a girlfriend, but he goes out into the world and all these other women try to make love to him, and I think that's the plot.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing a guy with only his boxers running away from a bunch of women there, you know, gives me the same feelings I had from, you know, all kinds of old anime like Golden Boy or whatever, right?
It's just Tenchi Muyo all over again. It's just
right.
Peter Grill is the self-insert. You're going to insert yourself as Peter Grill, the strongest man in the world, who is pursued by all these ogre women, I guess.
Right. He has a girlfriend, but the girlfriend, you know, they've not progressed beyond holding hands. All these other women are trying to get with him big time. I guarantee you at the end of the show, he ends up with the girlfriend. There, you don't need to watch this. Move on.
Yep. Gibiate. All right, I already see.
Is it Gibiate or Gibiate?
Well, it's about the Gibier virus, but it character designs by Amano, and I'm already getting a there's a Fist of the North Star aesthetic in the background. Look at that post-apocalypse, and look at those costumes. But it's not Fist of the North Star character designs. It's Fist of the North Star crossed with Amano in a fantasy world.
There's potential there.
I'll watch an episode of this.
Yeah, maybe. There's nothing here. There's nothing here to indicate that the plot is unique. It feels very, Resident Evil-y. I feel like there's going to be a lot of action scenes and fighting of monsters, right?
Yeah.
That sort of shonen fighting kind of situation.
That's actually my worry. It might look and feel like, it might look like Fist of the North Star and start like that, but you're right. It might just turn into a shonen fighting Monster of the Week show.
But Fist of the North Star is a shonen fighting Monster of the Week show.
Yeah, but I feel like it won't have the mood and pacing of a show like Fist of the North Star. I worry it'll be a lot more like the shows that we get really bored with in a hurry. I don't think this one will have a tournament arc. I'll give it that.
Well, I think the key difference, between Fist of the North Star and other shows in the same genre is that in Fist of the North Star, right, all the combats, all the fighting scenes ended pretty much immediately, right? Kenshiro would punch someone in the head and the bad guy would explode, and that's that. The shonen fighting shows that have problems with tournament arcs is when they drag fights out. How long did Naruto spend fighting that one guy? I feel like in Gibiate, right, they're going to have situations where, they spend a long time fighting one enemy, right, before they move on to the next one. And that's probably, not my cup of tea, but maybe yours.
Yep. I feel like what I would do with this show is I'd wait a little bit to see if anyone I know says anything about it. And if no one says anything, I might give it one episode. But I suspect someone else could watch it, and they might say, oh, yeah, it was boring, or shonen fighting. Or they might say, oh, it's really good. So,
yeah, well, the good points you did point out are that, you do have a famous, amazing artist as the character designer, and also an original story, right? It says original story. It's not based on a manga or a visual novel or anything like that. So that's also usually a good sign.
Yep, and there are no warning signs in the art. It just looks like perfectly fine anime art, probably very high quality. This is just a mini version of that Horse Girl show that itself is just an idol show.
Okay.
This just looks like a kid show. Look at that little character down there. The Goron. That doesn't look like any Goron I know.
Yeah, you can tell based on the mascot character and also the bright colors that this is probably a show for kids, maybe even slightly older kids, late elementary school or early middle school kind of thing. But whatever.
Those are girls with gigantic guns. We know exactly what that show is going to be. We didn't need to say anything. What was the point of all this?
We already went over.
So, the moral, we talked about how, you got to use heuristics, figure out what to watch, don't waste your time. But I got to make something really clear. The real moral here is that you should apply everything we just said, not just to anime, because anime is not unique in this regard. This applies to literally all media. Every show, everything that's out there that could take your time, you can give it a glance and decide if it's worth glancing further at. Everything I put on the screen right now, they are exactly what they look like. They will never surprise you.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you shouldn't judge, right, by the cover, right, something might be what it doesn't appear to be. 90+% of the time, yes, things are exactly what they appear to be, right? You're probably already doing this subconsciously. Do it consciously. Don't waste time, right, watching things, reading things that you probably already know you're not going to like. Stick to what is in your wheelhouse and only diverge when you hear a strong signal that something is out of place and it deserves further investigation.
Yep. No one came and said, oh, Rim, there's a dark story arc in the 3rd season of Fuller House.
Yeah. You're only going to live so long. Don't waste your precious lifetime.
I hope this was enjoyable. If you want to ask us any questions or follow up, just email us, geeknights@frontrow.crew.com. Check out our YouTube channel. Just Google the word Geeknights and you'll find us. It's 2020. Just Google. I'm not going to put up URLs or anything. You'll figure it out.
Yes. Our podcasts, our videos, our website, everything is all easily accessible on the internet and social media. Geeknights, all one word. You will find us. And if you don't like us, tell the Crunchyroll Expo that you didn't like us, because that's what,
Yeah, make sure, they brought us in here. You can make sure, if you didn't enjoy this, that they never bring us back. But if you do enjoy this, everything we do is just free on the internet. We've been podcasting since 2005. There is a lot out there. Enjoy the rest of Crunchyroll Expo, and hopefully someday we'll do all this again in person.